It's me, your boy, who likes Sandman games. And today we will talk about something different. Today I'm gonna make a topic on another thing which I really love, which is Lovecraft. And specifically, why do games seemingly have so many issues creating a Lovecraft games which would feel good and natural to the Lovecraft universe. Let me start talking about it by establishing the fact that there are four elements, not elements, there are four types of horror. There is silent horror, loud horror, creepy horror, and eerie horror. Now, silent horror is your suspension. It's the building, it's the map which you create, it's the room in where you walk, it's the forest, it's the creepy sounds, stuff like that. It's something that is meant to build up suspension inside of you. As where loud horror, as you might guess, it's the jump scares, it's the monsters chasing you. Now, silent and loud horror, they cannot really exist without one another because, well, kind of. Loud horror cannot really exist without silent horror because loud horror relies on build-up suspension to deliver the jump scare. Next one is the creepy horror, and creepy horror is creepy monsters, grotesque, disgusting pretty much, while eerie horror is the existential crisis and horror that is less repulsive and less in your face. It's the horror about which you think and horror which hits you slowly but like a train when it does. And it's the biggest horror when it comes to Lovecraft, because Lovecraft as a whole is about existential crisis, if you wish. So with that being said, why do the games fail to create a proper Lovecraft game? Well, a lot of horror games, especially Western horror games, rely on a cycle between silent horror and loud horror. What is that cycle? Well, you have silent horror, which builds up suspension inside of you, right? And then loud horror delivers a jump scare in your face, which causes this build up suspension inside of you to pretty much erupt, explode, and give you this moment, where you jump, you scream, whatever. And then you calm down, and then, silent horror kicks in again, starts the build up of suspension again for loud horror to deliver the jump scare. That is the cycle. Lovecraft uses different cycle. Lovecraft uses a cycle of silent horror with eerie horror and sometimes creepy horror. What it does is it builds up suspension inside of you using silent horror, and then it amplifies the scare factor by creepy, eerie, existential crisis kind of scares, which it throws at you with Cthulhu and whatnot. And it also amplifies it with a creepy horror by showing you all those grotesque and disgusting creatures, be it outer gods or be it Cthulhu himself and the such. So as you can see, Lovecraft does not really have loud horror element. There's no actual jump scares, and the reason why there's no jump scares is because in the Lovecraft universe, Lovecraftian horrors, they do not care about you. At best, someone like Cthulhu can acknowledge you like we acknowledge ants, but that's about it. There's no real care from them to us. So there's no real reason as to why they would do something that would cause a jump scare to you. And that creates a problem because when you read a Lovecraft book, you observe a story which happens to a character. You are not the character in the book. You observe the events that happen to the character. But games are much more interactive. You play as a character, therefore by extension you become the character, and therefore you need to feel involved. And you don't feel involved if things do not happen directly to you, and that's the biggest problem. In a game, things need to happen to you, but Lovecraft is not about that. So what should we do about it? Well, I believe that video game companies fail to create a proper Lovecraft horror game because they kind of want to have their feet in two different shoes at the same time. They kind of try to create a game where you as a character would feel involved, which means jump scares, which means loud horror, but at the same time they try to stay true to the Lovecraft universe, which means no loud horror, which creates this weird dynamic where it's like there are jump scares, but either they are far and in between, or they just appear from really weird places just to scare you and make you feel like you are a living, breathing part of the world. And it does not work. What do I think gaming companies should do if they want to create a proper Lovecraft horror game? Well, that is honestly simple. They need to take risk. They need to create a horror game which has a lot of suspension, which is, silent horror, which has a lot of those creepy maps, ambient music, and dark forests, empty towns, pretty much stuff like that. They need to add eerie horror through existential crisis, through themes upon which you can think and reflect, and which will scare you for much longer, because a jump scare, it scares you in a moment but then you forget about it, but existential theme which scares you, it will bring you horror slower, but it will stay with much longer. So it needs to add this kind of horror, horror of those things which can end your existence and they don't even realize it because of how small you are, or existential crisis through the themes of the fact that you can't really do anything, you can't really change anything when it comes to those creatures, in a sense, even though you are an active part in the game, you are still an active and insignificant part of the world. And it also helps to add creepy horror through stuff like, creepy, flashy Lovecraftian creatures, and, Cthulhu being all creepy and flashy if you wish. Now, adding loud horror is not advised, but it is possible through, stuff like fishermen or Cthulhu villagers or whatever. But the problem with that, I would say, is that it's very hard to balance, because you will either overdo it, where you will rely on those things too much as opposed to relying on Lovecraftian horrors, or you will not rely on them long enough, at which point it will feel like why were they even here, and it will kind of ruin the pacing of the game. I think the best way to put them in the game would be in the very beginning, where they can play a more active role, but as you learn more about Lovecraftian horrors which surround you, they kind of become more of a background thing than an actual threat. Now, with that being said, I would like to end this video by suggesting you something. I would like to suggest two stories which capture existential horror and eerie horror very, very well, in my opinion. One would be Insomnia. No, it was Insomnia. Wow, I completely forgot what was the name of the game. I thought it was Insomnia, but now that I say it out loud, it was not. It was definitely not. Let me go look it up real quick. Soma, that was the name. That's why I got confused. Insomnia, Soma, that's why I got confused. But yeah, Soma, delightful game. I think it's a little bit underrated, but yeah, it's a very delightful game which really throws all kinds of, like, existential horror is a huge theme throughout the game, but at the very end it just smacks you right in the fucking face with it. And the other thing which I would suggest is a story from the manga and anime called Long Dream, and the series is called what is actually the series called? The series is called Junji Ito, and the story is called Long Dream, which I think in Japanese is Nagai Yume, I believe. It's a beautiful story. No jump scares, no creepy imagery, no creepy. I mean, there is one creepy creature at the end, but the true horror lies in implications of what happens, and I really suggest you check those two things out if you really don't want to sleep tonight. And yeah, I hope this video was fun. I hope that I will make more Lovecraft videos in the future, because I do like Lovecraft universe. I wish to contribute to it, if you wish, in all the ways that I can. And thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in a few days again, maybe in a week, who knows. I'm spontaneous like that. Bye.